What's happening?
What's going on? How
How
you
are
doing?
you? No, you start.
Hold on. Are we recording? I know we're recording, but is this
We're
the
recording. We're
recording?
live. I mean, if we're gonna do this, I feel like we have to do it from the very beginning. No prep. Like no planning as much as, I would love to plan, but I just feel like if we're gonna do a podcast, I don't know, from my point of view at least, we should just kick it.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I guess I do. Well, one question is, do you have a microphone set up, or because I'm right now speaking through my laptop. I mean, I can set up.
You
You
sound
too?
perfect.
Okay, all right, for sure. Well, welcome to the podcast, everybody.
Well, the thing is, like, because it's like a work in progress, literally, we don't even have a name for whatever this is. So you are the one who came up with the idea. So what do you want it to be about?
Well, the podcast, what it's to be about, so we're twins. We're podcast twins, right? I had a podcast not too long ago called That's When I Knew, where real people have real conversations about the journey towards building a meaningful career. And you had a podcast called
What is your legacy?
What is Your Legacy?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's some synergy there, and these are the topics that I would love to talk about, and guests come on our show and share their experience around their legacy, about building meaningful careers, and all things related to that.
Okay, cool. So two things on my end. One is an open question. Does your podcast not exist anymore? Is it like dead and gone?
Good question. It exists online.
Always, it never disappears.
It's on the internet somewhere. You can still listen to some previous episodes. But That's When I Knew is it's being reborn into this. So whatever this is this is the next evolution of that podcast. So I won't say it's dead. It's just evolving into something bigger and better with you.
Yeah, I would hit agree on that.
Okay.
Second thing is synergy. I don't know what it is about that word, but I absolutely hate it.
You hate the word synergy?
I hate the word synergy. I
Is
think
it the sin? Is it the sin, like the sin in the or is it the energy?
no.
Is it the sin or is it the energy?
Like no, the whole package. It's a package deal.
Okay.
And I don't know. I personally just have a difficult with it, but I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you. It makes sense, like for us to have this podcast to some level. I don't know what it's going to develop into, which is interesting, but we'll see.
It's going to be a lot of fun because you're so respected in the tech industry, generally speaking, like across the whole, all different fields, but especially in sales, go to market. And your tagline is turning a normal conversation into a meaningful one. So I think with that, plus me coming in, cracking corny jokes, I think this is just going to be an incredible podcast. And there's so much to talk about. There's a lot happening, and there's a lot happening in the world, in tech, in our lives. And so I think there's just so much to talk about, and it's going to be a good time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of synergy,
kidding. The sin or the energy, or both. Yeah.
Like what I find so also fascinating now that I am in sales and like decided to build a career in sales is that there's so many like nuances of that you acknowledge and can see in your own regular day-to-day life, when it comes all the way from how you are being approached when you're out and about doing errands, let's say, or specifically go shopping for a particular item, all the way to, getting my nails done and seeing either how great the customer service is or how shit it is. And there's like a whole spectrum in between for this particular type of beauty service. And we're not even talking about like all the other stuff with, hair and makeup, whatever. It's just like, let's say nails. It's such a challenge. And but it's interesting how when you do work in sales to whatever capacity, you start seeing these things and notice them more. And I think I mean, I sometimes just put that automatic like hat on of, oh my God, I could solve this problem for them. Like it's so easy. Or even like the way sometimes on some websites with their checkout experience or just the website experience in general, when it's
Yeah,
all about a service. And I constantly just think about all these different businesses that I know in SaaS that could help them make this like a better process and more seamless experience. So like in that way, I find it pretty fascinating to just see like the translation between the different worlds and sometimes having to kind of stop yourself and go, that is not my problem to solve. Or today is not the day.
yeah, definitely. I mean, your story makes me think of the fact that sales is absolutely a human experience. Like,
Yeah,
we often think that sales is just like this business thing. But no, selling, being sold, buying, this is a very much a human experience, and
yeah.
that is gonna that manifests itself in every part of our lives.
Hmm.
Um, and so I definitely agree with you. And yeah, I think that that's going to be something fascinating to talk about too on the pod. Like, you know, how I wasn't able to negotiate at the at the local store, at the local farmers market. I got upsold,
Yep, definitely. Or those missed opportunities that you see so many times and you go, come on, that would have been so easy, to upsell me right
Yeah.
now. Like I really just put it all out there for you, yet you went the other direction. And it's just like, okay,
Yeah.
right.
That's a whole other thing too, huh? Like, do you find yourself uh analyzing, or not analyzing, but do you find yourself critiquing people on their sales skills that like aren't in tech? Like, you go to, like you were saying, going to the nail salon and
Yeah.
they did such a great job, but then they didn't ask, are you coming back? Like, do you critique sales skills outside of, like, the account executives and SDRs that we work with on a day to day?
No, I don't. Like I don't criticize. I would only like highlight like, oh my God, that was such a great experience. Like, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Or highlighted. Yeah, I would definitely do that. I think more so like I think I empathize sometimes with what they're
Hmm.
going through and like the process that they have to consider and try to find kind of like a middle ground in some ways.
Yeah.
That can be anything from like, oh, let me just like cancel that booking online because it's cheaper for you to take it uh, outside of that booking platform because their fees are so high, for example, or they
Mm.
get like less revenue from a purchase because someone booked it there, like versus doing it directly
Yeah. Yeah.
at their store. So things like that, I would be like, okay, get it. Or like one time I remember when I just moved into my place a couple of months ago, and I was trying to set up my Wi-Fi, and this poor woman on the other end was like really trying to help me, and I was just getting frustrated because I didn't have enough time. I was sitting in between, meetings and chatting with this customer support and trying to get my Wi-Fi sorted out. And next thing you know, I go, well, let me just do it myself then because we're not getting anywhere. So I tried to do it myself, but then I couldn't come back to her. And then I realized that it is 31st of March, 2022, right? So end of the quarter. And I asked her this question. I go, like, does it make a difference if I sign up myself on your website or if I do it with help from you? Do you get a commission if I complete it with you? And she goes, and we're chatting about this, in the chat bot. And she goes, actually, yeah, I do get a commission. And I go, okay, got it. I'll stay with you. Like it would have been so much faster for me, such a quicker process to just exit the chat and go ahead and do my own reservation of whatever I needed.
Yeah.
But I could empathize with her in that moment of like, shit, it is end of the quarter for other people, not for me personally, because I'm not like an AE anymore, but I get it. There are other people in other jobs that do get paid differently, whatever. So I was just like, I can help with my time. That's really the only way. And I can understand like end of the quarter, it is stressful. She's probably like wondering, am I gonna hit my number? And I don't know if it's gonna make a difference whether I stay on or not, but I certainly know that is not gonna hurt anyone but the time that I have available.
Yeah. No, that's definitely, I feel like that's a, not almost an unwritten rule, but it's definitely not a rule, but I think as fellow salespeople, we get it. We
Yeah,
understand, like we understand. So I
yeah,
think, I mean, I guess that can be perhaps the cool thing about selling a product to other salespeople, but because there is that level of understanding. Like it's not like you're dealing with, I mean, like, you know, because there's certain professions where they have no empathy for salespeople.
yeah,
I don't know if you see on LinkedIn, sometimes there's those posts where they go, "Oh, I wish I could never, you know, I hate when I get cold calls, or
yeah,
I hate when they email me back to back and they're spamming me." But it's like, oh, you know, but that's because there's no empathy
yeah.
for the people in those roles. But yeah, I definitely have empathy. I more so have empathy for people, for the salespeople outside of tech. Like one day, a solar salesperson came to my house and came knocking on my door, and I was like, because I actually did that, so I had double empathy for him. But it's one of those things where, you know, when you see salespeople
Hmm.
outside of tech, outside of B2B, grinding and just doing such a great job and just values their role, and but they're not making even, you know, half maybe of what they could be making if they were in tech sales. To me, it's like, damn, like it's one of those things
What
where
do
it's
you do?
like, you know, what do I do?
Yeah,
I tell them about the tech industry. Like I
yeah,
told the guy, I was like, hey, you know, you should be looking into tech eventually. Like, you know, when you're ready, like look into
yeah,
tech.
yeah.
You can literally double your salary. And
Exactly. I mean, so there's a it's gonna be funny, but there's a Popeyes here in London, in Stratford
okay.
to be specific. I love Popeyes. Like I have this particular love for Popeyes. I'm not into fast food, but Popeyes just hits the spot. Like it is a special
This,
place for me.
yeah,
Anyway, so I go to Popeyes here where I live, not far from where I live, and this lady, she was so good at her customer service skills and like her way of engaging in conversations. And I love her energy. Like she was just so good. And so as we're talking, I tell her basically like, you're really good at sales. Like, have you done this in other places? Like, what's your background? And we start having that chat. And I tell her, I'm like, look into like sales opportunities, like sales jobs in tech, like in tech sales. She's like, what? What is that? And I was just like, wow, we really need to get the word out, like this needs to be the mission. Like, how do we get the word out to people that have this like natural ability and skill? It comes just to them. And you're like, oh, I just know you could be doing something else. And to be fair, like I didn't assume that this is what she wants to do or that she's looking for the
right,
opportunities. We
right,
had a
right.
conversation about it, like, what do you like about this? And she, was like, I don't. I just do what I gotta do, and that's how we got into like, okay, well, what's next for you? And
Yeah,
so we engaged in that conversation. But yeah, it is cool. Like even talking to I don't even know how I would refer to them like school wise what year they're in, but they're basically like maybe 16, 17, 18 around that age.
sophomore, juniors,
Yeah.
high
And
school.
so
Okay,
it's been really cool like coming into certain neighborhoods of London or outside of London, and just seeing these like young adults developing into adulthood and really figuring out like what's next for me and for them to learn more about the tech industry and what the
yeah,
opportunities are. It was like really cool to just connect the dots and see what's going on in terms of their
yeah,
skill sets and you know what they could do out in the
yeah.
world.
Yeah. Even going into university, going into college, like, you know, I had no idea what the different functions of were in a company. Like there's just so many things that you can do.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think that's one of that's just a great feeling. And that's the feeling is when you can shed light on something for someone
Mhm.
or show them a path that they had no idea existed. That's
Yeah.
half the feeling. The other half of the feeling is when you do that to someone who has a desire and who's driven, and then like it speaks to them and they're like, wow. Because you can share some past with some people and they can say, I'm happy with where I am. Like I don't really, like, And so, but when you show that path to someone who's just been looking and they're lost and they just been looking for that path,
Yeah.
that is just an amazing feeling.
Yeah, it
And
is.
I agree with you. We got to figure out how we can do that more often. I mean, over time, that's a big problem to solve. But there's some good companies out there, I think, trying to solve that. But
Yeah.
definitely something that we should continue to talk about.
Definitely. I try to spend time exactly in those neighborhoods and like underrepresented groups and places and people, to expose them a little bit more into what the opportunities could look like. And what's so exciting to watch the little faces just like, go up with excitement, like their eyes are just like, wow, is when we always talk about like, here's how much you can make on average, as
That's what gets them. You tell them we're
that's
making
what
six
gets them.
figures, they're like, oh, yeah. You tell
Yeah,
people that's what's going to get,
it's
because when
always
you're that young, you don't care about building a meaningful career. You, you think about like, I want to buy a car, I want to get a house one day, I want to, buy a
yeah.
Gucci belt.
But I think like maybe I don't know because I don't. Maybe that's a good question to ask because maybe we assume that they're so materialistic that that's all they would care about. But maybe back in their head they have like visions. They have dreams, they have aspirations bigger than what's currently in front of them. I don't know. Maybe that's me hoping for the best. That a
Ah.
16-year old will be like, yes, one day I'm gonna, you know,
I don't know.
yeah.
I don't. When we talk about building a meaningful career, I think when you're that young, you might have goals and aspirations to do something, but I don't know if it hits the same.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like it's like I define meaning with purpose, and right, and so I don't know. When you're that young, it's pretty rare that you have in my opinion, I didn't have a purpose. I did not have a purpose. I did not have a purpose when I was in high school or in college. I was like living life, trying to figure it out, being a follower, doing stuff the wrong way. Just so happened to be blessed and to have gotten lucky in some areas, and that's okay. I think sometimes you have to go through that like discovery of living life a little bit before you can find your purpose and something like hey, I'm standing on this. This is what my life is about. This is what I'm passionate about, and I'm gonna stand on that. And I think that's what I think about with a meaningful and like purposeful career.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it might be a high schooler that's like, no, I'm a be a tech salesperson, and I'm gonna do it the best, and no,
I don't know. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it isn't.
or
Maybe
something else.
it becomes. I don't know, whatever it is.
Yeah,
I don't have
doctor, lawyer.
no idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything.
What did you want to be when you grew up? Like, do you remember what you wanted to be when you were in like high school?
Um, no,
You don't remember?
no, I
I
don't think.
wanted I wanted to be in HR. Now ask me why I wanted to be in HR.
Why did you want to be in HR?
Yeah,
Actually, I'm very curious to know why, Robert.
like why HR? Well, all I knew was that HR standed for human resources, and I like dealing with people. So
I
I
mean,
didn't even know I didn't even know what HR did. Like I just human resources. Okay, bet.
that's so funny though, because I started off in HR actually.
Okay.
And I was kind of deciding like, okay, where do I do next? Like, what do I do next? And what do I like about this job? What do I not like about this job? And the things I did not like so much about that job as an HR admin coordinator was all the actual admin paperwork. And even when it became like digital versions, it was just so much due diligence you need to do from an HR perspective. And there's so many different, you know, personnel and teams and paperwork involved in anything that has to do with
Yeah.
another human.
Yeah.
So that to me
Not
was
that human. It's not
it,
that human of a job.
exactly at the end of the day, I was like, I want to FaceTime with people. And then
Yeah.
I learned like my favorite highlights of this job, and I did this when I was in college. And the highlight of my job that I always look forward to, I even made sure my classes were not scheduled for those days, were on Mondays, particularly Monday mornings at like 10 a.m. Because that was the day, at least on a bi-weekly basis, that we had new hires starting and they would be in any different types of departments. But I love the new hires and I loved welcoming them to the company. I love like giving them the tour of the facility and then like walking them through like the company history and mission statements and the executive team and all these different things, like what they should know about their roles. I loved it. Like that was the highlight. So I always made sure like that was always blocked off for new hire orientation. And
Yeah,
so I realized very quickly, like, okay, either I continue like this path of HR, but I really want to deal with people. If not with people, I at least want to be like employment law. Like that was the other route I would take probably. But
yeah.
then I was like, or here's another idea. I could do sales. Super random. And obviously I went with sales.
Yes, yes. You went with sales, thankfully. Because we
HR
met.
would have been fun. HR would have been fun. And you know what I think I would have pivoted to? I haven't thought about this other
I already know, probably recruiting. If you didn't go into sales, you probably would have went into recruiting. Am I right or am I wrong?
I think you're wrong.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think I mean I think that's the obvious path for me would be recruiting, and that's probably like what I would have thought I needed to get into. But I think
okay.
I would have pivoted into like DE and I think that would
Oh, D and I. The
I think
D and
that
I
would
is new. Like that's new.
yeah.
Unfortunately, D and I is like a 2020 thing.
No,
And
it's
it's not.
not.
I feel like it was a 2020 thing, and then it stayed. It was 2020, 2021,
No,
2022. But now that we're in a recession,
no, I disagree.
unfortunately, this
I
is.
disagree.
Hold on. No, let me hold on. Let me just put respect to all of it because this is recorded. This is no disrespect to DE and I professionals. What you all do is extremely, extremely important. As a Black man, I can say that like inclusion
Hmm.
definitely important. I'm just more so speaking to the fact that like as we're in a recession, we've seen certain companies, a lot of companies really showcase what they're prioritizing in a downturn.
Hmm.
And the great companies, I'll just say the great companies, in my opinion, are still valuing DE and I. They see it as a key driver to like business revenue and a good culture. But a lot of companies that weren't really true to those values, I think, I'll just leave it at that. So that's what I mean by that. No disrespect to D and I professionals. Like what y'all are doing is important. I'm more so
Of course.
speaking to the companies and
Yeah.
how they value it. But it did come in 2020. I don't remember seeing DE and I don't I it was probably a thing, but it wasn't like every company had a DE and I prior to like 2020, 2019. From
Hmm.
maybe I'm just naive. Maybe I just wasn't looking for it. But
I think that's the case. I think it's the latter. I think they were all like doing the job, maybe not as labeled like DE and I think they
yeah,
were maybe, titled differently, job
yeah,
title wise, but I think the work was still there. I think the initiatives were still there. Maybe just wasn't labeled that way until 2019, 2020, whenever, which
yeah.
sounds like yesterday, but not really. But same argument can almost be made, maybe not same year, but similar could be made for enablement. When did
You think so?
enablement become like the thing?
I've known okay. So I've been in sales my whole career. So again, I've had enablement since the beginning. Like when I was working at Sunrun, which is like not even a purely tech software SaaS company, we
Mhm.
had like sales enablement. They might not have been called enablement, but we had like trainers and
But that's what
uh,
I mean, and that's the whole point. You might have had sales ops, you might have had sales engineer or solutions consultant or a
no, we
relationship
had
manager.
people that trained us. That's enablement, right?
Yes,
Let's
that's
define enablement for the let's
that's
define
part of
enablement for the
enablement.
people.
That's only part of it, but this is my point. You can like label it however, just as we label a different department something else, that existed or didn't exist. So it's like
Yeah,
at the end of the day, it's the same
new
thing.
titles, new titles,
Yeah, new titles, new year.
new me.
Nope, and that's where I draw the line.
New title, new year, same me.
Yep, same me, same me.
Yeah,
If we can add, it would just be like more money, but can have that.
money.
Yeah, more money.
Yeah.
More of everything. No, I'm kidding.
More of everything. Prosperity.
Yes.
But yeah, no, what you're saying is spot on. So you would have been in DEI. Like if you didn't go into sales, you could have
Mhm.
seen yourself leading DE&I for a company somewhere like Google or Apple.
No, but sure.
Well, that's the goal. That's the goal.
I don't know what the goal would have been, right? Because I'm not living that reality. But in a dream world, maybe, or in a game of what would you be if you weren't, in this, then yeah, probably a different type of role would be most likely in D&I.
Yeah, DE&I roles. I just
What
feel
about
like
you?
that's. Well, I was gonna say DE. I'll tell you, but I just want this to start. DE&I feel like is one of those roles where it's going to be a hard. It could be a hard role depending on the politics at your company, but I
Yeah.
think it's one of those roles where, like, ideally, you should wake up happy every day, like, because you're literally fighting. You're literally doing something good. I think the opposite of inclusive is like exclusive, and like unless you really value your real value is to exclude people, but I don't think you would go into that field. So I think being able to like wake up, my job is to make this company inclusive. I'm not
Mhm.
saying it's an easy job. By no means is it easy, but I think it's one of those jobs where like, you know, sales is kind of the same. But I think the problem with sales is number one, we don't have the same brand as someone that is in a D&I role. Like we have a lot of salespeople still have that used car salesperson. So you're like overcoming that. And then also the way our comp is structured, half our pay is contingent on like signing up and getting this
Performance.
customer to
Yeah.
do something that they may or may not be comfortable or wanting to do. That's our job. And that's not a bad thing. Our job is to convince them that this is the best solution, right?
I don't know if convincing is the right choice of words, but I think I get what you're saying.
You get what I'm saying? It's just a different vibe.
Yeah.
Like it's just a different. So like it's the fact of the matter. That's why salespeople are suffer with burnout and like mental. Like you don't see D&I people on LinkedIn talking about mental health. Like I mean, they probably do. They experience it, but like, I feel like salespeople, we have stereotypes of taking drugs, drinking. Like I see it like burnout, grind. These are all words that describe like the life of a salesperson.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm more so speaking to.
That's like 2022 stereotype
That
salesperson. Like it's a new year.
was last
We're
week.
gonna be looking at salespeople in a different light, and they are very different. It's a different experience in 2023. Better be.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm not speaking to like what I hope and wish and what I'm fighting for, especially with what I'm building with Jobski. By no means, um, but I think we have to acknowledge the past because it can help us with building a better future for ourselves and for the industry. We're
Definitely.
the future. We're the future. We're the That's why we're doing this podcast. This
Yeah.
is why we're doing this podcast. We're trying to like create the industry that we want to be looked at like DE&I people. Okay, let me stop.
Yes.
you know, um, by the way, I hope people, we have to put this on YouTube so people can see like my smile and see like that I'm animated, like I'm just
Or
like when I'm
maybe not.
joking.
Or
I'm not
maybe
trying to get
not.
canceled out here. I'm not trying to get canceled and maybe like Robert Crayton. I'm getting interviewed on CNN and say, hey, you don't like DE&I? Or like, no, that's not what I said.
No, you need some context to the conversation. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
like no, that's not
Um,
what I.
but actually, we never spoke about this, which is the length of our podcast. Because now it's been 30 minutes. So do we keep
Oh
going?
yeah, no. Let me tell you what I wanted to be, what I would have been. Actually, no, we can scratch that. We'll say that for another episode, maybe.
Oh, the next episode, what would Robert have been if not indeed
Yeah.
E and I?
If I didn't go into sales, what would I have done? Now that I look back on my experiences, I'm going to share that on the next episode of the podcast.
Okay.
Also, I think what we should talk about in the next episode of the podcast is transferable skills. Because we talked about that earlier today with the whole idea of like salespeople that aren't in tech and like how they can do such a great job, but you know, they're just not exposed to this industry. So I would love to talk about like what are the skills that these people typically have that could be super transferable, you know, in tech sales, and what do they need to learn? What are the potential gaps that they might have? Like we should definitely talk about that, come prepared. But so we'll talk about that, and then I'll also tell you what I would have been if I wasn't a salesperson.
But wait. This needs to be answered though with the context that it will be something in tech.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I would have told you the other side of this is simply like I'd just be chilling. I'll be traveling.
I wouldn't even be into. I wouldn't work.
I would do something though to some capacity, something that fulfills me. Like one of my
I know that well, first of all, do you have a guess? Like, what do you think? What do you think?
What do you mean?
Like, what do you think I would? What career do you think I would go into if it weren't tech sales?
Maybe an architect.
Okay. So next episode, you'll tell me why you think architect, and then I'll also reveal my answer.
Oh.
Okay.
Build
the suspense. Giving people a reason to come back. Yeah. Subscribe to the podcast.
That we don't even have a name for, but
yeah, we're gonna come up with a name. But believe me, you wanna stay tapped in because we're gonna have some good conversations, and we're gonna entertain and inspire.
Okay, love it. Cool.
And all the good things. Awesome. Well, it was great podcast.
Yeah, great time.
See you next week. See you next week.